Good evening, I am Amadine Obewe. Now we'll be talking tonight about the rule of law and adherence to court orders by security agencies, the federal government, and so on and so forth. Particularly, we'll be taking a look at the matter of the ongoing tussle between the Department of State Services and the suspended Central Bank of Nigeria Governor, Emefiele. Just recently, the governor was granted bail by a federal high court in Lagos, but was subsequently rearrested by the DSS despite being ordered to be remanded in one of the correctional facilities. This and many more will be taking a look at what really is the issue when it comes to obeying court orders. What is the stand of the law when these matters are involved? Tonight, my guest is Samuel Ihienseken Jr. He joins me to do more justice to this. He's a human rights lawyer and he is a legal practitioner. Stay with us. All right, Mr. Samuel Ihienseken Jr., it's good to have you on Top Talk.
Thank you very much. Good to see you again.
So let's talk about, let's start from the beginning of this matter. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, what's going on in courts now, fights and so on, let's talk about the suspension of the CBN governor.
Yeah.
Legally speaking, what was that really about? Is the president allowed to suspend the governor?
Yeah, yes. The position it's clued from the Federal High Court judgment, which to date has not been set aside or appealed upon. Federal Sanusi versus CBN and the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. In that Federal High Court decision, the court in that instance held that, consequent upon the provisions of the Constitution, the acceptable way of actually removing the governor of the CBN is by a two-thirds majority consensus or resolution of the National Assembly. From there, it will be sent to the president who, upon consideration, will then veto the removal of such CBN governor. And so, however, there's a clue, there's also a clause that anonymously, pursuant to other steps that can be taken against the CBN governor, he can also be suspended. And it's nothing illegal. So I think there's a distinction between removal and suspension. So I think in all fairness to the president, I feel with the mind-blowing infractions, with what we see from the Naira redesign, where we can see that it's just for political reasons. There's basically no economic plan for the Naira redesign. And some other similar allegations, which one Honorable Kazura actually made against the CBN governor, in a nutshell, infractions as to monies for Stamp Duty Act. So many allegations against the CBN governor in variance with the CBN Act and other laws. I think it's based on that. The president has enormous powers to suspend him so that he can have a holistic investigation as to what has been happening upon the CBN. Most importantly, I think it was sometime when this whole issue was heating up, sometime towards the ending of last year, we were both in this studio where I said, one way or the other, this man will be made to account for his misdeed, even after the present tenure. I think that is reality coming to pass. And I don't fault any administrative or legal investigative step be taken against the CBN governor. He needs to do a lot of explanation. And if he's not able to convincingly explain, let him go to the court and have his day in the court. And so I think that is what is playing out now.
All right, that's fair enough. But if we are talking about, some of the things he did or is responsible for, do you think there's any part of this that should involve his principal, I recall in a speech that he gave, just to round up, he said, or he basically took responsibility for being the one. If you recall, there was a time when people were asking for extension and so on, and the CBN governor had to go to meet the president. I think he met him once in Katsina, met him the other time, and there was this air of him taking permission before being able to move forward. So is there any blame or responsibility to be put at the feet of the former president?
The CBN governor, it's the powers the CBN governor have by virtue of the CBN Act, Buffers and other laws, is very wide and enormous. It's supposed to be an independent arm, finance arm of government without any interference. And the CBN governor is actually in charge in shaping the fiscal, monetary, and economic policy of any country. The office is not supposed to be political. But you see, Emefiele, his time in CBN, you even had an instance, a trendy video where he threatened to do with FS Aboki and other people. We had a case where he even held people for criminal defamation, Jojubo. So many instances. We had instances where he refused to comply with several court orders, even from the Supreme Court. You know, it took him a long time to comply with the Supreme Court judgment on Naira redesign. That's to show you the character of the person who was not presided as the CBN governor. Then, coming down to the question, it's actually ranging with a lot of issues. The essence of administration of our criminal justice system here in Nigeria is that there is no vicarious liability. When I mean vicarious liability, a person is only liable for the offenses he commits. You cannot share responsibility except it's being conspired and committed. That's when you can rope in the other person. But when you do it alone, there's no vicarious liability. The principal is not supposed to take the vicarious liability for acts, omissions, and offenses codified that are committed by the subject. It's you who will answer for those infractions. So I don't think the need to start drawing the principal, some government functionaries, I don't think it arises at all. Ihienseken, if the allegations against him, he committed these allegations when he was in office, and he should be made to respectively answer to them.
All right, again, let's look at, prior to because there's a lot that is happening now.
Yes.
Like you said, when you have issues, go to court. Like they say, the court is the last hope of the common man. But I wouldn't count the former CBN governor, or suspended CBN governor as a common man.
It's
a
not,
little bit
it's
above.
not in that class of
Yes.
common man.
So let's talk about one of the things that happened before all of this, before even the new administration, that I wonder if has any inkling to play here, which is the issue of him, or allegedly, he never admitted it, allegedly running or trying to run for presidency. Do you think this is in any way something that might be what he's paying for now?
Well, when you say allegedly trying to run for president of Nigeria, you're just trying to not to be fair. This is a man who filed a case in Federal High Court that the APC and the government of the day, he filed a case. Are you not aware? Well, it's just here. We don't need history to tell us. He filed a case in his name at the Federal High Court of Abuja that the APC and he should be permitted. It was filed by Mike Zakom and SAM. It's not, we don't need a source here. So that actually made a lot of people apprehensive. We saw the large numbers of cars this man bought. Yes. We saw the large numbers of cars this man bought and said he wants to contest them. And we also had some trendy pictures. I don't know how believable it is, but I have serious reasons to believe that those were his campaign cars. And that alone, standing on or looking at the provisions of the CBN Act, that is a loan for him to have been suspended from office. And so, because you cannot be a CBN governor and at the same time be a member of a political party. It's not possible. And so I'm even surprised that the regime of Buhari, they even left him up to this point. The man he has shown his incompetence. And it's a lesson for all that no matter what we do in this life, we are not infallible. That someday we'll all go down and we'll answer to a higher cause. So this CBN governor should be a reflection for all political office holders that a day will come whereby there will be a reckoning. For everything you have done in your office, you must explain and give account for it. So I don't pity the CBN governor. I don't share the sentiment people are going about and they sympathize. I don't sympathize with him. This man has cost us, if we have a problem today, most of the problem we have economically, it was caused by the CBN. Look at the dwindling fortune of the Naira. It's under him, this Naira went to almost 800 Naira when he was CBN governor. Yes? Yes, at the last count was 790. So it's so shocking from where he met it as a CBN governor, 115 or thereabout, the thing skyrocketed because we have an incompetent person as a CBN governor who's not interested in the well-being and shaping the economic and the fiscal policy of Nigeria. So let him, there's no excuse anywhere. Let him explain to the security agency where he had the money to come out to say he wants to contest for president. Let him explain where he got the money to buy those number of cars. There are a lot of explanations he has to make, and there's no sympathy for him at all. Let him explain. He needs to do a lot of explanation to the security agency.
All right. There's a saying, or people usually say, some of these things might end up affecting the rights people, quote unquote, or innocent people, hence the rule of law and process. So let's start getting into a lot of these processes. The arrest itself, yes, and then going forward. I recall it was only after a judgment came, I think from the FCT High Court, if I remember correctly, that the DSS should either charge him or let him go, giving them 7-day ultimatum before we finally saw any kind of activity after almost a month or perhaps a month plus. So what do you make of that? What's the legality of that, the way it has gone?
You know, with all fairness to Emefiele and the DSS, I might not be too comfortable in the manner of style the DSS has actually carried out this investigation. But to some extent, I give them kudos because a man of the caliber of Emefiele, it takes serious guts, balls, and strength to actually investigate and attempt to prosecute such person. I think before the point of the judgment, I sincerely believe the DSS, they might not have gotten it all correct in many instances, but I think they must have obtained a warrant or a remand order to have kept him. And at the point the FCT High Court, Justice Adamu Mawazu, ordered them to either charge him or release him on bail. I also think it's fair enough to say they filed the charge, because I've been involved in cases of this nature. The procedure is that when a person files a charge, he will then be charged to court. So I think where I'm not too comfortable about is that statutorily, by law and the constitutional provisions, for an offense, it's the same. If the offense is not a capital offense, that means within 48 hours, you're supposed to charge the person to a court within radius, a criminal court within radius.
That was the point I was trying to get.
Yes.
So the time limit is 48 hours, 2 days.
Yes, by the provisions of the Constitution, it's actually 72 hours. Yes, and so, 48 hours. And so, I think if the DSS would have kept him that long also too, I believe there was a warrant. But however, the Federal High Court did not give any compensatory damage, did not give any reparative. He only ordered for him to either be released or granted bail. And in fairness to the DSS, they accordingly charged him. The scenario that played out is where we'll come to.
Okay, now talking about the charges, like you said possibly might have got a warrant and so on. And even from the start of this conversation, you know, from what we've been talking about, it seems as though it's expected that whatever Governor Emefiele is being held for will be something weighty, something. Even the statement that announced his suspension said that he was undergoing investigation into the running of the affairs and so on and so forth. You know, so a lot of Nigerians expected maybe there was speculations about terror financing some months or years back, issues of the economy, mismanagement, so on and so forth. Even trying to run for office and all of that. But then after all is said and done, we're seeing illegal possession of firearm and so people are wondering, after all this time, after all the investigation, is it really how the nature of this alleged crime, is this how it is ought to be treated?
First, I was surprised that is but I don't think that is actually the nucleus of what I think is a peremptory step of what the security agency are bringing by the day. They just charge him for an allegation they feel he has committed, put illegal possession of firearms. I think we should give a little bit of liberality to the DSS. I feel they have very sundry allegations. They are not, most importantly, even within the time of the Buhari regime, this same DSS have been making an attempt to prosecute, to arrest, investigate, and prosecute this insane Emefiele. And I believe at that point, they even approached the Federal High Court. So I believe at that, they even arrested him and he was going to be immediately on head ground. I think they have so much against him. But the manner in which they are going, that is where we have issues with. I think they have strong prima facie allegations against Emefiele, but they are bringing it by bit because what we use is our adjectival way of investigation. It correlates with, we've still not grown beyond the stage of arresting before investigation. There ought to be investigation before arrest. So that is where, seemingly, the court is not striking.
Oh, that's interesting. Investigation before arrest.
Yes.
I think a lot of people have been wondering about that. Maybe all these things should have been done beforehand. So going forward now, what do you make of the situation where, what I call the embarrassing situation we saw about some days ago, where the suspended governor was granted bail in the sum of 20 million naira, I believe, and other conditions. And he was ordered to be remanded in one of the correctional facilities pending, the fulfillment of the conditions. And then there and there in the court premises, we saw a scuffle between the DSS, the correctional officers, the policemen, and at the end of the day, the DSS ended up taking Godwin Emefiele once again into their custody. What do you make of that situation?
Yes, that is where I have a little bit of, I differ from the approach the DSS. They would have done better than that. It's actually easy to actually take preemptory steps in our Criminal Justice Act without drawing the consequence of either the court or eyebrow of members of the public. I think the DSS would have, in all honesty, would have acted better. I think they would have conducted the operatives. They don't need to fight or this is a suspect, for God's sake. And more importantly, from my experience also too, is that when there are big persons, when so-called big shots, when they come to court, I know the prison have a way of actually trying to get involved, trying to see what can be done. So I think what the DSS would have simply have done in consonance and in respect to the court is they would have waited for Emefiele, the prison, to take him, and they fight their charges, or they show them their warrant and ask them to produce him in the court on a particular date. I don't know if you get it. They don't need to go to that brazen issues that draw the anger of a lot of Nigerians. No. Because they might have a very serious case. I believe they have a very serious case against Emefiele, but the manner in which they are approaching it might actually cause them a lot of criticism. So I for one, I condemn any step whereby anybody would try to undermine the powers of the court or breach orders of court. Where I feel in that scuffle between DSS and Nigerian immigration, the DSS, yes, the DSS would have done better. Yes, they would have done better. I think I saw their response, and I think, in all sincerity, I believe after now, this should serve as a lesson, so that next time they don't just incur unnecessary criticism, because everybody is talking now. Everybody wants to, because of how they find themselves, and try to ventilate. But you see, they should not remove their eyes from the ball. There are sundry allegations against Emefiele.
Right, so, just before, or earlier today, we saw that the DSS actually tried, people are calling it a silent case or a secret case. They tried to actually seek official court order to retain the suspended governor. Is there a question here about how much the DSS can abide by court orders? Because it seems as though what they're asking for is something that they've already gone ahead to do. What people will say, they're asking for permission, not approval. You already have him in your custody, now you're going to ask for, I don't know, an order to hold him, and the court says no, and yet we've not seen him be moved. Is there a question here about
that
ability
is
to
the same
obey?
thing I just explained in my last response. You see, the manner in which they are going about this case, they can also openly approach the same court, file further charges against him, and he will be made to answer to them. You don't need to, because I feel the step in which they are going beyond the fact that by the provision of criminal justice as LFN 2015, is actually the magistrate court that have jurisdiction to actually, except when it's on the issue of terrorism, to actually detain someone. It's actually an abuse of court process for them to be before the Federal High Court with Emefiele, and at the same time, they are seeking for orders. I don't know, the lawyer who did that, I don't know what engineered him to do that. So I think the DSS should act fairly and above board. They should show they're experts in their game. And next time, don't make such very clear and glaring erroneous legal step. I also understand that the judge actually considered it threw the application out. So I think it can get better than this. Let the DSS, let them draw a lesson from this, so that good cases of this nature, next time, they don't boggle it.
All right, but I'd just like to know, I don't know, how do you see this turning out? Do you see DSS being able to make a case? Because a lot of people believe when you have such high-profile cases, at the end of the day, it will just be swept aside, concessions will be made, compromises at the end of the day. It might just end up...
I feel, if it's my own personal opinion, the approach the DSS, they might have investigated the matter, but I feel the agency that is properly suited to answer these sundry crimes of Emefiele is the ICPC and EFCC. Yes, for one, I trust their experience and their capacity to actually prosecute such high-profile magnitude matters like this. So the DSS is already handling it. Let's not prejudice the outcome. Let's watch and see the outcome of it.
All right, that's fair enough. As we're still watching, moving on, the issue of rule of law and adherence to court orders still remains an issue. Just, drawing a line from here to other expectations, do you believe there's a need for some sort of, would I call it reorientation or revamping of the system so that, because I know this is, as a lawyer, I'm sure you are aware of more cases than I am, where there have been court orders that have not been adhered to.
Undermined.
Yes. So it seems as though while going to the courts, there's both parties or one party has it at the back of their mind that whatever is said here today, I will do what I will do. What do you think the courts can do in this particular situation?
The one thing you should know is that the court needs to activate their corrective and their punitive powers. Their steps, the court have inherent powers. The court can even commit, when a sitting president goes against the extant laws or the extant judgment or orders, they can commit such precedent. They almost did it in the Naira redesign case, when the then president refused to comply. When the order was pending, he made other very prejudicial and contemptuous statements. And so, flowing from that, it's time for the court to live up to, because the Nigerian society is now relying on the court system.
But I'd like to know the process. Take, for instance, what has happened now.
Yes, when you have, the position is this. When you have an order of court, like in Emefiele's case, where the court orders for him to be remanded in prison, and the DSS have taken him to their custody, with due respect, if it was an enrolled or an order of the court, actually, the step is the party will serve the DSS from what they call Form 48, Form 49, and bring a motion to commit the DG of DSS to prison. If you feel...
Which parties should do this in this situation?
The defendants.
Okay.
Yes. If there was actually an order of that nature, the court will hold a quasi-criminal trial in the course of the matter. That's the approach to take, and it flows to other matters. But I don't think in this case, in Emefiele's case, I differ from the opinion of a lot of legal scholars who have been commenting. I think the DSS, they still have the powers to rearrest Emefiele. But
even while the court has said it should be remanded.
yes, but not absolutely. But what they would have done that is what we are questioning. You know, law, it's strategic. It has to do with some certain legal steps. You hear me over time saying that thing. What they would have done is simply to make handy their 5 charges, get a production warrant. I don't know if you're getting me. Serve the prison authorities, and it will answer to the new charge. If the court said they should be handed over to DSS, apply that for sensitive reasons that they want Emefiele in their custody, the court might grant it. So, but however, that is absent in this case. They went out of their way, overreaching the court order. So that is the distinguishing. So in moving forward, they can actually, next time, they can do something in a very correct way. They might have had a good mind or good prosecutorial step to do this matter. But the strong point of it is the manner in which they have approached it. So, in all fairness, they have the powers to rearrest Emefiele. They're subject to some prerequisites in compliance and in procedural step with the provisions of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act or the conventional criminal arrest of suspect after they've been charged to court. If they would have done that, then nobody will hold them liable. But in this instance, I think from everything that's transpired, I think they fall short of what is expected of them. And I feel the DSS can be better than this.
Okay, I think that's fair enough. But I think the question is, when you talk about them learning lessons and what to avoid in the future.
Yeah, you know, I'm basing it on the press statement their PRO, yes, made and said they've learned. Yeah, I think I saw that part. Yes, so I believe, sincerely speaking, they will be more law-abiding and more responsible and more efficient in further.
But my own question here is that's probably only happens if they pay for or are made to answer for what has already happened. As it is, as we speak, the suspended governor is still in their custody, so they got what they wanted. Even though the court has now said, we're not approving, your holding him in custody, he's still with them. So the question now is, will the lessons be learned if something doesn't happen? Like you said, I believe you said it's defendants' duty to file a quasi case or however you
to bring in a quasi contempt proceedings against the agency.
Do you think that option is being taken?
No, I believe the lawyers for method. I have been involved in cases with the DSS, and it was so hot one time in my younger days. Way back, I was on the verge of I filed contempt proceedings against the DSS, and in a nutshell, one thing I will give to the DSS is let me be very honest with you. What I can see with them is that when they've done their investigation, sometimes, and the process is devoid of any illegality, they comply with such court orders. The DSS, from my own practical experience, when they see that the process is normal, is not fraught with irregularities, there's a way. In that instance, they had my client. He was charged for sundry crimes, and he was then charged to court. And what now followed next is that his cars were also seized. I approached the court. The court granted it that they refused to comply. I served them for 19, served them for 40, served 49, 48, for 49. We're on and on and on. After some time, I got a call. They want to release the cars. We should come and collect the cars. That's to show you. But compared to other agencies, they don't even care whether there's a court order. I know what I'm telling you from experience. And it might take a little bit process, but they normally comply.
All right. To just end the program, if you can comment on something similar that is happening. The Ihienseken chairman has also been in custody for a while now. What's your take on that aspect?
I think I don't know the scope or the investigation of what they are holding the EFCC chairman. But you see, it's what is good for the goodies is good for the gardener. This same EFCC chairman, I know how many times was he committed for contempt to different prisons in Nigeria. But that's not to say that it should be held indefinitely. I believe the DSS, they would have secured the court order now to have kept him that long. However, I urge the DSS to be a bit considerate. They should hasten their investigation and appropriately charge him to court so that let him have his day in the court. And it's also a lesson too for officers of agencies that it is not always right not to disobey court orders, because that same court order you disobey will come back and haunt you someday.
I think that's the key message here. Obey court orders, regardless. At the end of the day, some persons are celebrating now, but it could turn around to hurt someone that is considered to be.
Emefiele now have to rely on the courts now for freedom and his liberty. And this is someone who, before this time, when you even have a Ganishi court order, it was so bad, a Ganishi court, CBN became an expert in Ganishi proceedings in Nigeria under Emefiele. They will contest your matter again. To pay this person his money for his judgment, they will contest it up to the Supreme Court. Maybe the litigant along the way is no more. So this is a lesson for everybody.
All right, thank you so much for coming. It's been a pleasure, and the way you broke it down, we've got a new perspective on it now. Thank you so much for coming and talking.
Thank you.